Hi, I'm Alana. My pronouns are she, her.
I'm Megan. My pronouns are also she.
These are some of our fluffy friends. You'll see more of them on camera. They have a lot of cameo roles in our video. And collectively, we are Movement with Megan and Alana. I teach yoga, I teach Pilates, I teach myofascial release, which is like self massage with the yoga tune up balls. I got into this work about 2 years ago, now 2022, June 2022. So it's almost been 2 years I've been teaching at about 10, 14 classes a week.
Well, I mostly teach yoga, lots of restorative, sometimes yin. Used to do a lot of family yoga, which was really fun. Now my knees are old and creaky. I do less of that. And also some myofascial rolling and sometimes work with resistance bands as well to build some like functional movement style stuff. I got into yoga teaching back in 2010, originally as a way to create accessibility for myself. I couldn't afford to go to studios regularly. And then over the years, I've really worked a lot in different community settings, local gyms, local community centers, sometimes local studios, sometimes independent partnerships with people's workplaces. And I just really love sharing the gift of movement and the gift of mindfulness and slowing down.
Aww. So, Megan, you work like 800 jobs.
I do.
Yeah, why don't you tell us about some of the other things you do with your life?
Well, when I'm not teaching, I work full time as a registered massage therapist in a clinic, and I'm also a psychotherapist, registered and qualifying. In all of that work, I really try to figure out ways that we can exist comfortably as ourselves.
For me, movement has been such a healing part of navigating the ebbs and flows of life and just living in this depressing world and trying to connect with people in a way that feels authentic and meaningful. And also, like, as a kid who had never been super athletic or super comfortable in my body, like, that's why yoga was. I teach a lot of different movement modalities, but yoga kind of sits right here at my heart because it was the one that allowed me to feel like I could be in my body and not absolutely hate it, and start to build body awareness and tap into what someone with a busy brain, which I know you are too, like to tap into a little bit of that slowing down and that awareness of those habits of the mind as well as the habits of the body. And that's something that like I like to cultivate in my classes where I can. And I think that's one of the reasons that you and I ended up working together because we kind of share that interest in creating inclusive spaces for self-discovery almost.
Yes, the mind body space, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a perfect practice or an advanced practice. I think when I taught more meditation style classes, the number one feedback I would get from people about that, or even the yoga practices, was like, oh, I can't do that because I can't sit still for an hour. And you don't have to, right? Like, we're all allowed to show up with whatever we have. And I mean, we go to each other's restorative classes. There are lots of practices where it's like, I got there for 5 minutes.
Yeah, and the rest was, ah, ooh, what should I buy at the grocery store? Ooh, my next D&D game. Ah, and then, oh, I'm supposed to be relaxing.
Yeah.
So.
But then there are times I think in having those practices and letting them not be perfect and cultivating them where you can, where you get out into the real world in like a real life scenario and you're like, oh, I'm using it right now, right?
Yeah.
Like I've built it in what is sometimes a harder environment. Like sometimes a class can feel very sterile, compared to the real world. But also, sometimes you're just having a day and you're on the bus and like your phone's blowing up or you're going to be late for work or whatever the thing is. And you're like, okay, I actually was able to default to those few deep breaths and like recenter on my here and my now. And all of those ways that yoga can come off of the mat too.
The desire to make participation in a movement, a mindfulness experience as accessible as possible is what drove us together. But knowing that is always going to be an uphill battle, and we all exist in this like late stage capitalist environment. So I have to get paid. I rely on 50% of my income from my yoga teaching, and so where possible, we try to create resources that you can access free of cost or class experiences that have a minimal cost to participate, but that's not always the reality, right? Is unfortunately the case. So we want to do what we can through our YouTube channel, through other means of facilitating community, as well as the ability to participate if financial means are a barrier for you. But I think it also extends beyond that in terms of thinking about the kind of bodies, the kind of backgrounds that can participate in a movement class. You know, the most common thing I hear is like, oh, you're a yoga teacher, I can't do yoga because I'm not flexible. And it's like,
Yes.
well, one, like, come to yoga, it will help you build some flexibility. But two, like, yeah, that's legit. Like, there are lots of reasons that our bodies don't like being in a pigeon pose or whatever. Like, a lot of yoga shapes are deeply uncomfortable depending on the shape of your anatomy, depending on the body that you're walking into the room with, depending on your history of trauma or your emotional experience being in group settings, in fitness environments, in situations where there's power hierarchies at play. So I think one of the other things that Megan and I have in common in a lot of the teaching we do is trying to use inclusive language where possible, trying to provide a variety of different options for folks, and always letting folks know that like what their body tells them is the most important teacher you have. Like, we're here to facilitate an experience, but if your body is asking for something completely different, we celebrate that, because that's part of the practice of yoga too, is closing the eyes, tuning in, and giving your body a chance to tell you like, hey, this is actually what I need. Like, this class is cool, great, but like, that's not what I need today. This is what I need today. And it takes a degree of like comfort, courage, and a sense of safety in the space to be able to explore something that's completely different from what the teacher is offering.
But that is also part of what we want to bring to our classes, is our own authenticity as teachers, and we want to foster that in our students on the mat and off, right? And
Yeah.
especially with YouTube, we don't always get to see your guys' practice, right? But it's nice to know. I mean, we hear lots about it, feedback from people, and it's nice to hear that people have empowered tools that they know how to use to meet whatever version of themselves might need it.
Yeah, I think the truth is, another reason we work together is because we're both just super weird, you know. And I think like neither of us are super comfortable having to filter the weird to conform to a particular set of expectations of what a yoga teacher or a movement teacher should be. And I think that it's been beautiful to have a partner and to connect with students who see our weird and are like, cool, that gives me permission to be my own weird special self in whatever way that looks like for you. And I'm not saying you're weird, but
You might be weird.
You might be, and that might be why we get along. So welcome to the club.
And thanks for joining us. We do
Yeah.
hope that you will enjoy the content, share the word if it's valuable to you, and we look forward to getting to move with you more.
Thanks for being a part of our community.
Thank you.